Hey guys, Happy New Year and welcome back to my channel. My name is Deanna. I am the owner of Cerise Boutique as well as the Facebook group Tumbler Tutors. And today I'm going to be showing you guys how I make this absolutely gorgeous split vinyl morning mug. It is a very popular design of mine. I always get a ton of questions about it. So I figured that it was about time for me to go ahead and make a tutorial on it. As always, I will have all of the products that I'm using as well as some discount codes for you guys to enjoy linked in the description below. Let's get into it.
Okay, so we're starting off on the Steel Magnolia website. We're going to go to their free download section where they have free templates for their 16-ounce travel mug. They have the SVG version and they also have a studio version for Silhouette users. I'm going to go ahead and click the studio version and open it up in Silhouette Studio. And this is going to pull up an almost perfect size for our morning mug. We are going to make a couple adjustments to it. I'm going to take my blade tool and make sure that I have it listed as solid so that it makes the outlines for me, and I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way down and I'm going to cut it right across the center, making sure that it's nice and even. I'm going to go back to my mouse tool so that I can pull these two shapes apart now. These are going to be two separate vinyls. So I'm going to zoom in so I can see and re-equip my blade, but this time I'm going to click the outline and I'm going to slice the corners. I'm doing this because I want to disconnect that bottom line and lengthen those side lines so that I can make sure that I have enough vinyl to wrap around the bottom of my cup. If you do not want to wrap the bottom of your cup, then you could have left it just the way that it was. So now I'm pulling down that bottom piece and I'm going to center it to that top piece so that when I go ahead and double click and pull this side line down, I can make sure that it's straight down and getting to that corner. I do that on both sides. And then I don't know what happened in my video, but I grouped it together. I grouped the bottom piece and the top piece together. So next up I am highlighting and I'm going to change the width of each of these pieces to 10.955. This is going to make sure that it wraps around the cup perfectly. The morning mug is a little bit wider than the 16-ounce travel mug. So now we've got these two pieces, and when they're put together like that, they're going to make the entire morning mug plus a little bit extra on the bottom. I'm going to line this up where I want it to cut so I'm not wasting any vinyl, and I'm going to click send. Now I always have my settings the exact same all of the time. I put them on vinyl metallic and I move the little Rolodex thing to 3 and I click send. Now that we've cut our top portion of vinyl, I'm going to go back to my design space and I am going to move that off to the side and move our bottom part of the vinyl into place, and it's going to be the same thing, but our settings are already going to be set. I'm just going to send it. Now, if you're like me, you're dying to know where this gorgeous vinyl came from, and I'm going to tell you that it is from North 80 Vinyl. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this vinyl. So now that our vinyl is cut, we are going to go back in and we are going to trim along that cut line. I'm going to cut on the cut line and I'm going to trim off our corners, and when I get to the side, I know that we've got our little divot to go around our handle. I'm not going to cut in that divot. I'm just going to cut straight across and I am just going to go back around. The reason why I'm cutting straight across instead of cutting the divot is because when I peel that vinyl up, it's not going to matter if that divot was cut or not. So we're not going to waste our time. And so now look at how beautiful this is going to look together. We've got our two pieces. I'm going to see which side goes which way so I know when I place it. And oh my gosh. So now I'm going to start peeling back the corner of our top piece. I'm going to start with the top piece first because it is easier to see where the vinyl meets up on the cup. So I'm going to wrap my vinyl around the cup and I'm just going to kind of inch it closer and closer to that handle until it fits perfectly. But I'm also making sure that the vinyl is placed evenly That's why I'm wrapping it all the way around, to make sure that it meets evenly. You can see I'm just measuring and I'm laying it down. So now I'm going to flip the vinyl upside down like I normally do, and I'm going to rub along the vinyl, and you'll be able to see here in a second that the tail, the back end of the vinyl, is kind of just falling off of it in the background. As I rub around the cup, you'll see it a lot better like this. As I rub, the backing is coming off of itself. The reason why I'm taking such special care to rub the vinyl and taking my time is because I don't want any bubbles. But this vinyl is so smooth and soft and buttery, and it lifts so easily. If you do get a bubble, it is perfectly okay. Just lift it up a little bit and just continue to rub it back down. Now, as I get towards the end here, I'm going to peel the backing away completely, and I'm just going to hand place that vinyl. I'm going to make sure that it matches up. I'm going to make any adjustments that I need to make, and I'm going to lay it down, and it is perfect. Look at that. It's gorgeous. So now I'm just rubbing the top edge. It's just a tiny, tiny edge. I'm just rubbing it over the top of it, just making sure that there's no bubbles along that top edge. And you can see here what that looks like. We will go ahead and clean this up later. Let's go ahead and get that bottom part on. So now, same thing with the bottom. I'm just peeling off maybe like an inch, maybe even a half an inch of the backing. And I'm wrapping the vinyl all the way around the cup, and I'm going to make sure that it is lined up evenly along that bottom edge of the first vinyl. And I'm just kind of inch until I'm happy with the placement, and I'm going to lay it down. The reason why we peel up that half inch of the vinyl backing is so that we have something to stick to the cup once we have it perfectly in place. And I'm just going to go right around and once again use my finger, go all the way around, making sure that I get to the bottom of the cup. I can rearrange it to make sure that it stays along that line, just in case I'm a little bit off. And I am just pulling and moving it to where I need it to be. Again, keeping up with the line of the first vinyl. And I'm just rubbing any bubbles down. And once again, I'm going to peel that back part off, and this is going to be able to let me make sure that everything is lined up perfectly. I'm going to rearrange just a little bit. I want those stripes to line up really nicely, and I'm going to lay it down and then pick it up back up because I am a perfectionist. But just making sure that everything is laid down nicely, and making sure that it is laid nicely around that handle. And beautiful. And now for my favorite part, the tab method. I learned this technique from my great grandma. When I was little, I used to buy my mom her favorite candies every year for Christmas, and they always came in this cylindrical packaging, and I always had a hard time trying to figure out how to wrap them. So one time my great grandma was like, here, let's make a bunch of tabs and fold them over to the middle of the bottom. And I always thought about that when making my tumblers. I will never have a bare bottom tumbler because I love the look of the tab method. I just feel like it's so clean and gives it a nice finished edge. So now that we have our tabs, what we're going to do is we're going to take each individual one and we're going to give it a little bit of a pull, nothing crazy, just a tiny pull, and we're going to slowly layer them just over the edge of the one that we previously put down. So we start to get a really, really pretty edge. And you guys, for the tabs, they can be as big or as small as you want. Don't make them too big because it makes it harder to lay them down without any little dimples on the edges. But just slow, take your time, And if you feel like your tab is too big, cut it in half, and just a little bit of pull and a nice tight stick down. So now that we're all done with our tabbing and everything is laid down nice and neat, I'm going to take my fingernail and I'm going to start rubbing on that divot on the bottom of our cup. And my fingernails aren't very long, but you can see that as I'm rubbing around the bottom edge that it is cutting the vinyl. You can use an X-Acto knife, that's fine too. I just find this to be way easier. And this is going to help us have that nice clean line, but also still be able to color the bottom of our cup. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm just going to peel up those extra pieces. Then I'm going to go in with an X-Acto knife and I'm just going to kind of push against those pieces where we cut, make sure that everything looks nice and put together. If anything came up that wasn't supposed to, I'm pushing that back down. And I'm just cleaning it up to make it look a little bit more presentable. Now I'm going to lean my X-Acto knife to the side and I'm going to hold it in place as I turn the cup, and this is going to cut off any extra frilly pieces that may come up. And then I'm just going to take those little pieces out of there. Now we're going back to the top edge and I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and trim that whole top part. And I'm just going nice and even with the cup because now I'm going to go back around with my knife at a little bit of an angle and I'm going to clean and expose that silver on the top edge. This is going to give our epoxy something to hold on to on the side of the cup versus on the top edge of the cup. We're going to have a nice, beautiful, clean line. Now we're going to play with some pop of color paints. I'm starting out with It's All Peachy, and I'm pouring just a little bit into a mixing cup because I'm going to then pour a little bit of some blush on top of it. This is going to be mixed together to match the pinky part of our vinyl. I am going to go a little bit lighter than the vinyl just because this is chalk paint, and once we put our resin over it, it is going to get a little bit darker. So next up I'm going in with Old Army Green. This is going to match our dark green of our vinyl, although this Army Green is not quite dark enough, so we're going to go in and add a little bit of black. I'm not adding too much because I don't want it to be too dark. Remember, the resin will make the color just a little bit darker. So we mix, and we color match, and it's looking pretty good to me. Okay, and next up, we are going to take this little paintbrush, and we're going to start painting our peachy pink onto our handle. I'm going to get as close to the vinyl as I can around that handle. I'm not going to worry if I get any on the vinyl. I'm going to try not to get any on the vinyl, but if I do, I'm going to wait until it's completely dry, because if I try to rub it while it's a little bit wet, then it is just going to smudge. We're going to have a mess everywhere. I want to wait until it's dry to clean it up, and I'll show you guys that part later. But right now, I'm just worried about getting a nice full coat onto the tumbler. And now we're going to go in with our green on the bottom. And you guys, these coats are thin. They're going to be thin coats. We're going to do a second coat, and that's really going to cover everything up. But the first coat is just going to be a nice clean layer. And it's going to be a little bit see-through, but like I said, we'll go through and put our second coat on. This is just our roadmap. And once again, I am trying to make sure that I get as close to the edge and even a little bit over the edge to make sure I get just over that drop off on the bottom of the cup. But I don't want to touch the vinyl. If I do, again, it's not a big deal because we'll clean it up in a little bit, but I don't want to. So now I'm going in with my second coat and making sure that I get full coverage on this. The first coat was dry, I'm going in with my second coat and just making sure that there are no spots that you can see the stainless steel through. We want full coverage. Just doing our pink, and then we will move on to our green. You can really see on this bottom part how great that second coat looks. Like, any questions about the first coat are absolutely gone. It is full coverage. It is beautiful. You can't even tell that this cup was stainless steel before. It is beautiful. Now, this is what I was talking about with the paint getting on the vinyl. I'm just taking my X-Acto knife, and not very hard, just a very light touch, and I'm just scraping that paint off. This is going to make it so that when we put our epoxy on, you can't even tell that we hand painted that middle part. I'm just going to go around and I'm going to clean up all of my messes. And same thing with our pink. We're just going to clean up our little messes, and we're just going to blow that dust off. Now I'm going in with some UV resin from CCDIY, and we are going to cover up our pop of color paints so that they do not scratch. I'm going to take a little paintbrush to minimize our bubbles, and I'm just going to do a very, very light touch. I don't want to mix up any paint that was already dried, but sometimes with chalk paint, if you do too rough, you can kind of smear it a little bit. So I'm just going to make sure that I put my UV resin nice and even, but also getting it into that divot just a little bit. I want to go nice and slow because I don't want any micro bubbles in there, but I also want to make sure that it does get in there so that when we put our top coat of epoxy on, that doesn't dip into that and make bubbles that we can't get out. Making sure that I do slowly flood that divot and go all the way to the edge, adding more UV resin as needed. Now we're going to go in with our torch for a once over to get any bubbles that may have appeared, and we are going to hit it with our UV light for about, let's say 2 minutes, just to make sure that's really, really cured. And we're going to go back in and work on our handle now. We're going to use the same process with our little brush, and we are just going to go around and make sure that we've got our entire handle. If you do get it on the vinyl, that is completely okay, because we are going to be covering it with epoxy later, but I just try to keep on the handle. The handle's a little bit trickier with the UV light. I have to move the UV light around probably a bajillion different ways. I hit it for a lot longer than I do the bottom. I do a couple different 60-second increments just to make sure that I've got every inch covered. Now I have a strip of premium textured vinyl from Cricut brand in the color copper. I'm just going around and lining that line between the two vinyls. This is cut at 0.10 by 11 inches long, and I love, love, love some premium textured vinyl from Cricut. You guys probably already know that. I think I've used it in every video I've made so far, and I just think it really pulls this look together. This is truly coming out so gorgeous. The only thing it's missing is my logo, so I used my little water slide and I put her down and clean out the water from underneath, make sure she's center, and we're ready to go. Next, I'm mixing up 15 mLs of CCDIY's Artist Resin. That's 7.5 of part A and 7.5 of part B. I almost forgot that we were making a handled cup, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my turner, and I'm going to epoxy my handle first. I do this for every single handled cup that I make. I feel like it is so helpful to do this instead of trying to catch it every time it comes around. I work my entire handle, making sure that I got full coverage on every little piece, making sure that I get around the part where the handle meets the cup, making sure that there are no bubbles there, and making sure that I do not miss any places around those handle bottoms. I'm also going to go ahead and epoxy that space underneath the handle so that I don't have to get it on the go around. Now I'm just going to place my resin down and I'm going to spread it as normal, making sure that I don't miss any spaces as it is so easy to do on this light colored vinyl, but also making sure that I am getting a nice good coat over that vinyl strip that we did. Don't forget to focus on that bottom edge a little bit. You want to bring your epoxy down to it, and you'll see here in just a little bit that I start to pull the epoxy that was on my glove and scrape it against that bottom. And then when I go to do the bottom, I lift from the middle up towards that edge, and that's going to help us get a nice smooth edge. And I hit it with my torch, and look at how gorgeous she came out. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I made this cup for myself. I am just absolutely in love with this look, and I really hope you guys liked the colors and the vinyls I picked out. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. If you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Cerise Boutique. Also, come hang out with us in my Facebook group for makers, Tumbler tutors, linked in the description below. See you guys next time.